Welcome to Following On Daily. This is edition 2. Neil Manthorp and Steve Harmison. It's real because Harmy's arrived and he's feeling as rough this morning as we were yesterday. But the big man is here. I've grown 6 inches because I have to stand on a step to be as tall as him. Harmy, welcome to the Rajiv Gandhi Stadium. Brilliant to have you here. You've been out, you've had a look at the pitch. We've got so much to talk about. But first of all, welcome. How are you feeling?
Yes, I'm not feeling too bad. I feel as though somebody the size of me sitting on my eyelids at this minute in time. I've only been at about an hour's sleep once I got in. So kick on, crack on, and hopefully get some sleep for tonight. Get into Indian time and be ready for when the first ball comes fresh as a daisy, because this is a picture. Looks magnificent out there. The outfield is pristine. The wicket looks bare at either end, but where the cracks are developing at their most, look as though they're going to be too full. So from a spin bowler's point of view, you know, a top batter will look at them cracks and go, nah, they're not in the game for me because they're too full. Half volley, I'll hit them anywhere I want, especially this positive England side. So I think the wicket does look a good wicket, and England have got both sides, I think, have got some questions.
It is really interesting, and I'll come straight onto that now, but my impression of the pitch as well is that the groundsman was actually watering the ends of the wicket by hand with a watering can, but the very ends, and that's more of a cosmetic thing, as you said. He's worried about how it's going to look. If it's dry and dusty, doesn't matter how it looks. If you said it's half volley length or full toss length, it doesn't matter. It was not as dry on a length as I thought the pitch would be. They've cut a lot of the grass off, but that grass is still live. And suddenly, for the first time, I'm actually wondering whether it might be a 3-seamer option for England. We'll hear from Rahul Dravid and from Mark Wood in a moment on the pod. But I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because for months and months on the Cricket Collective and now Following On, we've been talking about it's definitely a 3-spinner pitch for India anyway. But for England, that 2-seamer, 2-spinner option with Joe Root as a 3rd spinner, they might revisit that and actually go with the 3rd seamer. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I've said consistently over the course of the last few weeks that if there's one place England might play 3 seamers and play just Jack Leach and Joe Root, effectively 2 spinners, it would be here. I think this is probably the ground where the big stadium where when they go to Ranchi and Rajkot and Visakhapatnam, you know, the groundsman, I think, will play the tune of the BCCI. And as Rohit Sharma said in South Africa, when you commentated on the games over there, that, you know, I don't mind playing on green seamers if you don't whinge when you come to our place. Now, I think this one looks as though I expected. England might just play 3 seamers. They might go with what they're comfortable with, you know, what Ben Stokes is comfortable with. I think if he looks around the room and goes, who is going to be give me the most sort of control as well as potential taking wickets, he might think on Ollie Robinson, because I think it is Mark Wood's done the media of the day, and we'll hear about Mark. We'll hear from Mark in a bit, but Mark Wood, Jimmy Anderson, I think are shoe-ins. I think you play Anderson in the first Test match, you go with experience, and I think if there's any run rate issue from India getting away from England, then I think Jimmy will be used as somebody who will hold an end. I think Jimmy's experience, he did that last time we were out here, and he did it brilliantly. So I would imagine Anderson's going to play. I imagine Wood's going to play. Leach is obviously going to play, and then it's whether they play the 2 spin bowlers. And maybe Ben might think if it doesn't look as though it's going to spin from ball 1 right from the very start, then the 3rd seamer might be a better option of controlling what will be a difficult out, you know, whatever they do, spin or seam. I think England might think about playing 3 seamers, and then, but what that does is it gives them Robinson, which gives them 2 control bowlers, a bowler who can, and that worked well in Pakistan, a bowler who can, you know, take the pitch out of the equation in Mark Wood, and then you've got your tried and tested Jack Leach, who hasn't bowled for a while, and obviously Joe backs him up if day 3, day 4, day 5, which we expect the pitch to deteriorate. So that, I think, might be in Ben's head right now. And then I would imagine, but as we always do when you come to this part of the world, looking at the pitch 48 hours out is one thing, 24 hours out is another thing. And then you go to the morning of the game and you go, that's not the same pitch it was 2 days ago. So again, it's just a watch, but I would imagine these things are going through Ben's head at this moment in time.
Okay, well, let's hear from Mark Wood, who spoke earlier to Andrew McKenna.
Mark Wood, Hyderabad venue for the first test. It's a nice warm day. How are you feeling now you've got here from Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, good. I think the group's in a positive place. That Abu Dhabi camp was really good for us. We spent a lot of intense cricket training, but also had a good time away from the field, getting together, preparing for this moment. Now we're here. It very much feels like game on. Mindset has shifted from sort of training camp into match mode, and yeah, it's we're accustomed to the weather a little bit more. We're accustomed to the time difference a little bit more. So yeah, ready to go.
There was a lot of talk about the training camp and being based 1,600 miles away from the venue of the first test. Did you get out of it what you wanted to?
Yeah, the facility's obviously fantastic there, so you get whatever pitches you want. I mean, we scuffed wickets, we put sand on pitches to replicate spin. Also, those flatter pitches, so for the seam bowlers to try and bowl on, and scenarios with reverse swing and new ball bowling. So we try to cover all bases while we were there. Of course, it always helps as well that we're in a nice hotel and we could switch off around the cricket as well. So as hard as the cricket days were, it was nice to get away and relax the mind as well. But then as soon as we've gotten here, it's very much switch on. So it's been a nice sort of blend while we were there.
You are a tight-knit group. It's a couple of days after Harry Brook had to go home. Can you sort of take us inside the dressing room? What was the reaction from all the other guys when he sort of said, look, I'm sorry, I've got a situation, I'm going to have to leave you?
I think just very sad, to be honest. We're all, like you mentioned, a tight-knit group, and we feel for each other. We stick together through hard times, through good times. This is something that's different from cricket. It's life, and family always comes first, and we wish Brookie all the very best. We've all messaged him, we've all got around him, and it's very much a case as if he needs any of us, we'll all be there for him.
And then yesterday, another announcement, another player not going to be involved in the first two, Virat Kohli. Now, one of the world's great players. That's got to change it, hasn't it?
Yeah, Virat, I don't know what he's going through, but we wish him the best. It's never nice to see players, have to step away. Hopefully it's for, I don't know if it's a good or bad reason, but hopefully it's good. But I'm sure we'll see him at some point in the series. He's obviously a world-class player and someone that, as an opposition player, I want to test myself against the best players. He is the best or one of the best. So if he comes back, I'd love to have a chance to try and get him out. But we wish him all the best as well.
How much does him not being in that batting lineup change it?
It's a huge impact.
Rohit,
yeah,
but
it's a huge impact. Yeah, I mean it's a huge impact because he's one of the best players ever. In these conditions as well in India, he's a huge guy in their dressing room, a huge name, a huge everything. So if you take away his quality, there's loads of batters in India who can fill that space, and they've got quality right throughout. But obviously, if you take out your best player or one of your best players, it's going to leave a hole. So we've got to try and exploit that. But I'm sure, away from cricket, again, a bit like Brookie, getting him right and sorted is probably the most important thing.
From your point of view, there's been a lot of talk about this series being spin-dominated. We are in India. They've named a squad with 4 spinners in it. You are England's fastest bowler. What's your mentality going into this series? Do you have to say to yourself, I am going to be a factor regardless? Yeah,
I think it's very much probably looking at it a bit like Pakistan. When I try and get the ball, try and have an impact. I think with the roles, it might be slightly different at times. The spinners might be attacking at some points, and I might have to play a defensive role. But my role mainly with Stokes is use me as an impact bowler, make something happen, try something. It could be trying for a wicket for the guy at the other end, rough things up, and then so whatever the captain needs, that'll be my role. But I still feel like I can do a job here, as do Jimmy, Robbo, and Gus. We all feel that as a group we can still do a job here for the team and have an impact on the game one way or another.
SG balls, is it, for this series? Can you just give us a bit of a guide? How does an SG ball, say, differ to a Duke's ball back home for maybe guys who don't watch a lot of cricket? What's the difference?
It's probably in between a Duke's ball and a Kookaburra. A Kookaburra in Australia is flatter seam, lighter red, tends not to swing as much. A Duke ball at home, darker in colour, harder leather and swings for longer. This ball's probably in between. It'll stay relatively hard. The seam is pronounced, so I'm not sure it's going to help with seam movement because there's not as much grass on the pitch, but the seam is pronounced, and hopefully having that sort of, I guess, able to shine or buffer the ball on one side will make reverse swing come into play, and that's something that I'm personally looking forward to. So if the ball does allow that for me, then I'll be very grateful.
Obviously a lot of the guys have got IPL experience, so coming to a venue like this you can tap into. Johnny obviously played here for a long time. What's the general consensus? What's the feeling within the camp about what this ground is going to play like?
I think we've all just said that it's an amazing ground walking out. I don't think any of us have really, I guess, gone too over the top of, oh, it's going to be like this or that. It's just we've took in conditions, we've had a look around, we've had a look at the wicket. It's obviously a massive stadium, and in the IPL games it's really loud, so maybe we can expect that if there's a full crowd. But yeah, a lot of the lads have played some high-profile games. We've come off the back of the Ashes, which was loud in the summer, and high-pressure situations. So I think this group is confident and will lean on the Pakistan series, I think, as well, to look back on. I know every team says, oh, you should look forward, and that's the TV answer, but you always want to lean back on, you know, things that you've done well, and, you know, if these conditions are similar to Pakistan, we know in those tough moments that we can use that experience, lean back on it and say, right, this is what we did well, this is how we came through it, and try and use that here.
Just finally, I feel terrible having to ask, but we almost kind of do at the start of every series. How are you physically?
I'm all right.
How are you going to get through it?
I'm all right at the minute. 5 tests is obviously a long time, but like you say, if it's going to be spin dominated, then my role might be slightly different. I might not be bowling as many overs in the day, or, you know, with 5 test matches, I very much doubt I'll play all 5. It's going to be a mix and match situation with everyone, and we'll just see who gets the nod ahead of this game.
Can I just touch on that? Is there a plan already in place that, Mark,
No.
you play here? And
No, there's not at the minute, but I'm just telling you that it will be very doubtful that my body will get through 5 test matches. So we'll have to mix and match. You know, form is one thing, how you're feeling physically, like you've mentioned, and other conditions. So we'll have to weigh up all the factors, and that is well above my pay grade.
That's your old mate, Mark Wood, speaking to Macca. Again, lots and lots of questions. He did say that he's not expecting to play all 5 test matches, maybe 3, that he's excited by the prospect of bowling short, sharp bursts. Just before we heard from Woody there, I wanted to go back to a point you said about Jimmy Anderson maybe bowling dry. That's a very un-Ben Stokes thing, isn't it? We've seen Jimmy come to India before and bowl 14 overs in the day for 20. But when Ben took over the captaincy, he said to Jimmy, you're not having that. You're having 3 slips, and I want you to bowl full and swing it. We want wickets, not maidens.
Yeah, I think there's a time and a place for things like that. I think that's a positive. I think that's, for me, Jimmy bowling what you would call dry, and Jimmy containing and holding an end. That, for me, is a positive move. That's not a negative move at all, because we know out here, we know what Test cricket's become. We know the sort of change in momentum and outlook of the way batters look at the game. If somebody wants to go at 4 or 5 and over at Jimmy Anderson, we're talking about Jimmy Anderson containing. It's not like Nasser Hussain asking Matthew Hoggart to bowl a foot outside off stump. Jimmy Anderson can bowl a ball just outside off stump, with a ring field. And he is another one. Jimmy's another one. I don't think Ollie Robinson's as skillful as Jimmy just yet from taking the pitch out of the equation. But Jimmy from an angle point of view, and Jimmy from, you know, the way he's release points and the way he can manipulate the movement of the ball through the air when things aren't happening. That's what was great about Anderson last time he was out here. That's why he's got 700 Test wickets. That's why he's the greatest of all time. So from that point of view, if you've got the scoreboard going at 4.5 and over, and you say that Jimmy just bowled 5 overs at the top of off stump, that for me is a positive, because if they're in scoring mode, you've got a chance of making a mistake. And I've been consistent what I've said about this whole series. The hardest thing in the world for a batter to do out here is to start your innings. And if Anderson's got his tail up and the ball is moving, there's no better bowler to exploit a weakness in technique. And for me, I see, as the generation's gone, more and more batters with weaker techniques than there were 15, 20 years ago. That's why it's a great game, because they're scoring at 5 and over. But the technique isn't quite there, because obviously they're going hard at the ball. And I think if Anderson can bowl the ball at the top of off stump and move the ball slightly either way, I think he's in the game. And that's a positive, when people might think, oh, well, he's just trying to contain.
Okay, we're going to hear from Rahul Dravid in just a moment, but before we do, and he was really insightful, really articulate, informative, as he always is. I mean, he's just a brilliant cricket person, one of the great men of the game, Rahul Dravid. But before we get to him, back to Mark Wood, because 3 or 4 months ago, or maybe it was 2-3 months ago, it was in the end of last year, the Dubai Capitals in the ILT20 made a big song and dance about signing him for apparently close to $500,000. £400,000 to play in the ILT20. And I asked you on air, do you remember, in the Cricket Collective, I said, would would he really say no to Ben Stokes if he said, I want you to come and play, well, not all 5 test matches, but come to India for the test series? And here he is, but from a financial point of view, he's 34 years old. Is he standing to lose lots of money by being here?
I think there's 2 ways of looking at it. You could go, yes, there's the IL-20, he could have gone and took that money, the IPL money, he could have took that money. There's 1 or 2 other franchise stuffs where a lot of people would say about Mark with his injury record, why doesn't he go on the one-day circuit, the white ball circuit, retire from red ball cricket and cash in that way? And I think that's where the brilliance of, for me, the brilliance of Rob Key, who has come and gone, right, I identify my players who I think who are going to play for the next 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, basically till the end of the Ashes. And who are my key components? And that's why we've got 29 central contracts. It's a lot, it's a hell of a lot, but it's a plan that we've got going. And I think what you're saying to Mark Wood is, right, we're not going to play you in every game. We're going to control how you work. We're going to control, remember Alex Stewart giving us well, if they go off on a freelance cricketer, who looks after their bodies? And Mark Wood's biggest friend over the course of the last 5 to 10 years has been the ECB medical staff. And that's not having a go at Mark, it's just because he's been injured quite a bit, he's needed the ECB. And I think because of that, I think the security of the 3-year contract, the security of making sure that you play when we need you to play, we rest you when we need you to rest, the medical team is tip-top and we'll make sure that you're looked after properly. I think the best decision, best outcome for everybody. We need Mark Wood in the team as many times as we possibly can, but we also need to protect and look after him. And I think the solution that you now have, Mark Wood, hopefully at your disposal whenever you need him, bar an injury, all the way up till the end of the next Ashes, means you can plan and prepare to have a 90-mile-an-hour bowler in your team. We got to try and get Jofra Archer back on the field. That's another story. If we can get him on the field and bowling consistently, then we might have 2 90-mile-an-hour bowlers that we can control. And I think that's the beauty about these central contracts. So that, for me, from a security point of view, from Mark's point of view, is he's a home bird. He likes being, he's like me, he's from Ashington, so he likes being at home. He's got a young family and he loves being around. He loves being around home. So what that's done is, on his side of it, it gives him the security that he knows that he's got the financial earning, he's got the backup and security of the medical team that's going to look after him. ECB want him to play for England, in England first, and he's also financially secured over the course of 3 years to make sure that it's a win-win for everybody. So I think that is why I think the central contracts have been good, and that's why I would always urge people, especially bowlers, not to look at the big number as in from a contract situation in the franchise league and go, what's going to be best for your body? And I think a 12-month central contract for me would always be the best outcome, because the security of looking after your body is paramount, and that's where we're at. We're marked. So I think it's a good thing, and hopefully, I think he can play more than 3 test matches. I think the wear and tear on his body will be one of, can we make sure that he recovers well? I don't see him bowling a massive amount of overs. I don't see Seamers bowling a massive amount of overs, other than probably Anderson. But the rest of it is going to be grazing in the field. Can you get fuel and make sure he looks after him that way? So from an impact point of view, he might not be as utilised as much, which means his body might not be under pressure. So we might get 4 test matches out of him if you have to gamble, possibly test match 4, or hopefully, for England's point of view, possibly test match 5.
If you're watching this, by the way, on the talkSPORT YouTube cricket channel, you would have seen me being distracted by the fact that Rahul Dravid has actually been out there in the middle, looking at the pitch, walking up and down it by himself, and he's already had one long look at it. And it's almost, I'm reading between the lines here, but it's almost as if, I'm not so sure, I'm a bit surprised. And he's been out there by himself while we're talking, just walking up and down, and looking at the pitch very suspiciously. It's like, what's this? And I could be making that up. But anyway, let's hear from the Indian coach now.
I think one of the things that has been a challenge, actually, to be very honest with you, is to be able to get the right kind of preparation for your test teams. It's something that I have felt as well. Just at times, just the quality of the side games that you get to play in places. It's not like the old days when I first started, when you went to county cricket and you'd have even the professional who would be playing the game against you, or you'd have the best players playing against you. I think that's changed a lot. Maybe it's because of the amount of cricket, or I don't know what reason, but certainly the quality of we've certainly seen a dip in the quality of the tour games. And I think that can be, from a coach's perspective, that can be sometimes quite frustrating. So then coaches have had to try to be unique about figuring out how they want to prepare and what they think is the best form of preparation. On our last tour of South Africa, we played an intra-squad game, simply because we felt that we had our 18 there at the same time, and we felt that if we could mix the teams up in such a way that we would have Jasprit Bumrah bowling to Virat Kohli, or someone like a Siraj bowling to Rohit Sharma, we would give ourselves the best chance to have the best practice in terms of quality of opposition.
That was Rahul Dravid talking to Andrew McKenna, and while we were playing that clip, Rahul Dravid's now actually got together with the ground staff, not just the head curator, but 3 of the senior ground staff, and he's having a long chat to them. So I didn't think it was as dry as I thought it should be. Anyway, is it between... we'll come back to Rahul Dravid in a moment, but is it between Rian Ahmed and Ollie Robinson then for that number 8 or 9 position?
I think so. I think it's Rian Ahmed. I think you can throw Tom Hartley into the equation. If India play Axar Patel, then you've got to feel that it's sort of second guessing it. It's getting to the toss. And can I have your team before I pick my team? From a Ben Stokes point of view, because if India pick Axar Patel, which is 3 spinners, 2 seamers, then you're more or less thinking, well, hold on, Hartley might be the one here, because Axar Patel did well against England last time, drives it into the pitch from a tall release point. Then it might be Tom Hartley. Does Rian Ahmed bowl a bit too slow for these surfaces, especially if it's not going to turn early on, and you're going to play 2 and 2. So, look, Ollie Robinson, I think, is well in the game here. Ben knows him well. He trusts him. In Pakistan, are we looking at a surface which might be closer to the Pakistan surfaces than it would be to the normal, or what the Indian surfaces are going to be for the next 4 test matches? Are we at a position where we were 2 years ago during COVID, when we got to Ahmedabad and we got an absolute shirt front? Joe Root got 200, we won the game, and Virat Kohli did his not and made sure we played on the outfield for the next 3 games. These are things that might that's what Rahul Dravid's probably having the conversation right now as we speak. So it is, I think, it's between Hartley and Rian Ahmed from a spin bowler's point of view, because obviously Bashir's not here. I just think if Rahul Dravid's like that and he's concerned, and we're just reading between the lines, that pushes me towards the fact that England might play 3 seamers.
Okay, well, let's finish on Rahul Dravid then. As I said, articulate, thoughtful, incisive. And he was asked about England's preparation for 9 days in Abu Dhabi. You and I both thought it was bonkers. Maybe that's a product of our age and our thinking. He didn't condone it, but he certainly didn't condemn it, but he came closer to condoning it. And he said, and the more we're hearing about, they've got 60 pitches and different surfaces in Abu Dhabi cricket. The preparation, certainly if England, we weren't there, but if they worked as hard as they say they did, then they would have had a lot of overs, batting and bowling, albeit in practice conditions, not match conditions. Dravid was asked about playing matches, and he's obviously from our generation, so he would have wanted and did get 2 or 3 proper warm-up games, real games of cricket, going into a test series. But it was interesting, wasn't it? I mean, he didn't want to say, yeah, they did the right thing, and he did speak about the quality of opposition generally in practice matches going down, but he said that they had tried to provide really good opposition for England Lions, who are here and have played a couple of games already. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it was. It was enlightening, some of the stuff that he did talk about. Again, I keep going back to the fact that I wouldn't have wanted to be like that from a bowler's point of view. You asked me the question, a couple of weeks ago, could you see why they did it? Of course I can see why they did it. I really can. I've been in that environment, more relaxed environment. Forget the golf, forget everything that goes with that. It's about creating an atmosphere. When you come into the Goldfish Bowl like India, can you create an atmosphere which the feel-good factor going into the first test match? And I think that's what Ben and Brendan have done many, many times so far. So I get that. I really understand why they did it. I just think from a bowler's point of view, for me, it was all about personnel. The personnel that England picked, I was always going to be concerned that not enough time on the ground here to get used to lines and lengths and angles would get them in a position to be ready for the first Test match. You look at the Lions games that have gone on. Virat Kohli pulled out, which is a huge blow. It's a massive blow for India, for cricket. It's a big boost for England. I'm somebody who suffered massively throughout my career. My heart's with Virat because he's not just a legend of the game. Yeah, he's an icon of this. He's the icon of this generation, but he's a driver of Test match cricket, and that's what I love about Virat Kohli. So to have him not there, that's a bit of a blow. But I looked at some of the Indian reporters, and three of the possible replacements for Virat Kohli, that if they did, they haven't brought anybody in, but if they did bring somebody in, 3 of them are playing against England A at this moment in time. 3 of them are playing against England A, so that tells you how strong that side is. Virat, who was going to probably keep wicket in this game, he got a 50, a 50 and 100 in that game. So Dravid's right when he says that the preparation was there. I just wonder if could England have sent 2 of their spinners, possibly 3 of their spinners, to come over to that camp, to that game, and got overs under their belt. Callum Parkinson bought 43 overs in the second innings of the 4-day game.
How would Jack Leach have liked to have bowled 43 overs?
You probably wouldn't want Jack Leach to bowl that many overs coming back from a stress fracture, but you would want him. It would have been good to get him some overs under his belt. It would have been excellent to get Shoaib Bashir, who, by the way, 9 days in Abu Dhabi, he's not in this country. So if Tom Hartley or Rian Ahmed wakes up poorly in the mornings, our 16th man's not here. Dan Lawrence is not here. When Dan Lawrence, when I can, obviously you can't legislate for family issues and Harry Brook going back, and we wish Harry all the best with the family, and our heart goes out to the Brook family. So you can understand that you're caught short with the Lawrence one, but not having all your full complement of cricketers in the country because you've only come 3 days in, and one of them, it's a visa issue. I think that's again another tick in the box to say why we're not on the ground a little bit earlier. But the one thing I will say is that no matter how they perform, if they don't perform very well, I don't think it's about the want of how hard they've worked, because I know for a fact Ben Stokes and this team, Jimmy Anderson still playing at 41. That tells you how hard you have to work to play Test cricket. These guys will have worked so hard in Abu Dhabi. I can get that, but I still come back to the old-fashioned in me. 3 days before coming in, I still don't think it's long enough.
You're listening to Following On Daily. This is edition 2, and just before we go, I want to put one thing right.